These chicken hawk are going to send us home for Memorial Day weekend, where I'm going to honor my fellow veterans that I served 27 months in combat with, and they are going to not even give an up or down vote on continuing this war almost 3 months in, while Americans are paying almost $5 a gallon at the pump. It is pathetic. They use this procedural argument, and every American should just be absolutely outraged about this. It's a disgrace.
We need to get him on a podcast so we don't have to do all that bleeping. That was Democratic Congressman Pat Ryan last night, visibly outraged, but didn't seem too surprised, because naturally, what do House Republican leaders do when they are afraid of being rebuked by members of their own party over Donald Trump's increasingly unpopular and unaffordable agenda, including the war in Iran? Well, they call the whole thing off. Last night, House Republicans scrapped the war powers vote. It was meant to force Donald Trump to withdraw from the war in Iran, or at least try to get approval from Congress for it. After, as the New York Times puts it, quote, it became clear they, the Republicans, lacked the votes to defeat the measure. More from that report, quote, the decision to shelve the war powers resolution came after Republicans had lost control of the floor during an earlier unrelated vote, with several of their members defecting and several more absent. As the House chamber descended into chaos, leaders wary of risking another public defeat on a far more politically consequential vote abruptly scrapped the Iran war measure. We're back with Paul and Michael. This is perhaps one of the biggest political stories in the second Trump term, that Trump doesn't have the political juice to continue to wage war in Iran.
I think you're right. Pat Ryan's a friend of mine, and he speaks for so many people. He also is a West Point grad, a combat veteran. He represents West Point. It's in his congressional district. And he understands what he's talking about. And I think he's touching on something that a lot of Americans feel, especially veterans feel right now, that there's a generation of chicken hawks that are sending other people's kids to die all over again. And I think Iran has become a dividing point, especially within the Republican Party, especially within the veterans and national security community, with people like in the manosphere, the podcasters like Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan. But I also want to say that...
Who are out.
They're done. They said, we're done. That's it. He said no regime change wars. And now Tulsi Gabbard's out, who her entire platform, she said no regime change wars more than any politician I've ever seen in the last 2 decades, right?
But it's J.D. Vance.
Yeah. And it's also Congress is also the dog chasing the car, because Iran's already underway. The question is, can they stop Cuba? Because he said Cuba's next. They're communicating it, like there's probably an over-under on the poly market now, whether he does it before or after July 4th. But they didn't stop him on Venezuela. They didn't stop him on Iran. They have an opportunity to stop him before he starts combat with a new country. And Cuba is that dividing line. I think we have to try to push that to the forefront and see where Republicans stand on that, because in some ways Iran's already underway.
Well, the thing that people say, and they point to Indiana and they point to Cassidy and I guess Massey and say, well, he's still really powerful in the Republican Party. You can't say that without pointing out how small the Republican Party is right now. It's shrinking by the week.
Yeah, I think Massey's really, really important. I've been talking about this a lot this week. I mean, he just carved out a whole new lane for a presidential campaign just by running against Iran, against the tariffs, in favor of releasing the Epstein files, and against Trump. That's a presidential platform that's pretty popular.
In either party.
In either party, or no party at all. He could also run as an independent and galvanize a lot of people. And he's worked across the line with Ro Khanna and others. So something's happening here. Whether the movement is going to be within the Republican Party to challenge Trump and whoever his successor is if he leaves power, or to actually break away. And they're representing a majority of the country that is against all those things, but also doesn't want to go to the Democrats. 45% of the country is independent and unaffiliated, and they're looking for voices who represent that angry majority, especially on national security and regime change wars.
It's amazing how wide open this question of national security is right now, Michael Feinberg.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not quite as ready as you two to put up the bunting and celebrate at the Republicans' newfound discovery of integrity in the spine, because all we've got right now are, to use a word I hate, vibes. We don't have concrete actions. There haven't been votes on any of these things. There's been rhetorical pushbacks. There's been rumors leaking out of closed sessions. And when push comes to shove, the Republican voters have not supported the individuals who've pushed back. And the individuals who claim to push back when the moment of crisis comes don't. Mitch McConnell could have stopped all of this in that speech you played earlier and didn't. So I'm not confident that Republicans are actually going to have the mettle to follow through on this.
I'm with you. I appreciate the gentle blowback. That's why you're here. Michael Feinberg, Paul Rieckhoff, thank you both for being here today. Have a great weekend.